the agenda with apologies. Clerk, I believe we have apologies.
We do, Madam Mayor. So we have apologies from Councillor Alistair Ray, who has a business commitment, Councillor Jane Ray, who's got childcare challenges, and Councillor Chichester Miles, who also has childcare challenges this evening.
And do we have any declarations of interest? Members are reminded to make any declarations of disclosable pecuniary and or personal interest that they may have in relation to items on this agenda. And you should declare at this part of the meeting or when it becomes apparent that there's an issue. Do we have any? No? Oh, I'm sorry. I need to take a vote to accept the apologies. And
We have Councillor Heritage is missing as well.
Councillor Heritage, yes, but we haven't had an apology.
He's not able to join again.
I know he's had some health issues.
Yeah, well, I know he has. Shall we take it that he's?
I assume it must be.
Yes, we'll take it that he's apologised on health grounds.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I mean, effectively, we haven't received an apology. So from a formal point of view, we just have to continue on now.
Okay.
He may join us.
Yes. I think that's had health issues. So no declarations of interest to be made. I think that's correct. Thank you. Well, we have two presentations this evening, and I think it makes sense to move them up the agenda. So I'd now like to call on June Chapman, Chief Executive Officer of Citizens Advice St Albans District, to give her presentation.
Thank you very much, Claire. I'm very indebted to you for putting me up the agenda so that I can hop back to Essex before too long. I want to say thank you very much for your support for the last 3 years, which has enabled us to have a physical presence in the Salvation Army here, and that 3-year agreement has been very important to us because trying to make decisions about resource allocation on a 1-year basis is really very difficult, and the training for our advisors takes 750 hours, and typically they do that over 2 years, giving us 2 days a week. So our sort of planning horizons for expanding are of that nature. So it's very good that you've been able to offer your support for that length of time. Sadly, that's coming to an end on the 31st of March. And so here I am with my begging bowl asking for your repeated support once again. But I don't know how much you know about Citizens Advice and the work that we do and the support that we give. And I would like not to detain you for too long, but so perhaps it would be helpful if you were able to share with me some of the questions or areas that of interest and things that you might like to know, and then I can sort of hasten through some of the slides rather than keeping you for too long. I've been advised by somebody who said they liked the data. I think you have our regular quarterly monitoring. So you've got, that will have given you a flavour of the numbers of people that we're helping, the sorts of issues that they have, and the way that we're able to support them and the impact that we have. But is there anything in particular that people would be interested to know?
I have two questions. First of all, I think the work you do is outstanding, and I think just the stats sort of speak for themselves in terms of how many people you're helping the community. So thank you. I think it's really impressive. I've got two questions. One is more just going back to the stats, really. Just helpful, maybe not just tonight, but on an ongoing basis, just to see the trends over time, because we get like it's a really good snapshot, but it's literally it's a snapshot, and I'm just curious to see what types of requests or demands or the demographics are changing over time. So not urgent for tonight, maybe just for future reporting, be good to see what's changed, because then if we can see what's changing, we can anticipate and so on.
Yeah.
And the second thing is the thing you just mentioned there was really 750 hours of training, which in my simple maths is like 20 sort of working weeks, if you like, of work. I'm just wondering how in terms of technology and, AI and all that kind of stuff, what you can do to kind of accelerate the training just to allow your volunteers to get up to speed more quickly? Those are my two sort of questions.
Yes, definitely. We'll have a look at the trend stuff. The overarching answer on trends is that when we look back to 1942 and Citizens Advice's inception, and we contrast it with now, people's lives are remarkably similar in the types of issues that they have. They have problems with money, they have problems with housing, they have problems with their family, they have problems with their work. So there may not be as many trends, as many differences as you might anticipate, in fact. But I take your point about wanting to have a radar on anticipating future things, and there may be some things that we can draw out, and certainly happy to look at that. In terms of training and AI, I smile because new CEOs in the network of 240 independent services that there now are always ask that question: how can we speed up the training? And my wry smile is for two reasons. One is that we're a very human people business, and I'm not sure to what extent it's desirable even to seek to speed up the acquisition of very sophisticated people skills, nor the role that AI might play in that. We are interested in the role that AI might play in picking off, to use management jargon, the low-hanging fruit, the easy things that we can dispense with to preserve the human time and the interaction and the listening ear and the reassurance. Actually, when people say what's the most important thing Citizens Advice does for the people that they serve, I would say reassurance is number one. And that comes from a human, and it comes from a relationship, and it comes from trust, and it comes from a certain degree of intimacy. People walking off the street, they don't know us from Adam, and they are confronting, perhaps for the first time, their own sense of inadequacy at dealing with this issue. Often they feel very humiliated by having to confront the fact they can't solve this on their own. And it's a very intense interaction and an interview, and it's based on the relationship. And so I'm not sure quite how much speeding up AI might enable us to do.
Could I just respond to that? Because your response was brilliant. And so my day job, I work in an environment in a consulting firm where this is like a really hot topic. So, and some of the words you've responded with, I think, are really powerful and relevant. Sort of reassurance and trust and intimacy. You can't get that from a chatbot. Okay, and I think you've made your point really, really well, that it's really that human contact where you've got a potentially vulnerable individual who, amongst other things, is looking for reassurance and intimacy. So I think you've made that really well. It's just that maybe you're not sort of interfacing the person in the public with your AI, but that technology is behind the scenes, and so just helping that your volunteers get up to speed more quickly was one of my thinking. It's
really interesting. I went to Stevenage, Citizens Advice AGM, and they had a presentation on AI and how they have used it. They've decided that the problem they want to try to apply it to is not having enough supervisor time to support their volunteers. And of course, me being me, I immediately think, yeah, but you don't want a chatbot supervisor because the story with the client and the advisor plays out the same way with the volunteer and the supervisor. The volunteer wants reassurance, the volunteer wants the intimacy, the volunteer wants the conversation and the relationship and the trust. But they are using it, and they're using a chatbot to try to do that low-hanging fruit thing, to get rid of some of the easy things that they can address to preserve the supervisor time for supporting the volunteers. So we're definitely going to look at it, but the jury's out for me a bit.
Yeah, thank you.
So shall I just whiz a bit through my presentation, and you can stop me if you want to, and not. Have you got a control?
Gadget, I just apologize, sorry, I forgot to mention it.
Oh, how exciting. And we're going that way. Where do I point? Oh,
Right now.
so now.
There we go.
So who are we? We're a local independent charity with our own board of trustees. We're a company limited by guarantee and one of 244 members of the National Association and one of 10 services in Hertfordshire. 28 individual staff, but only 10 full-time equivalents. Our lowest serving member of staff, I think, does 2 hours a month looking at cases for us remotely. 75 volunteers or thereabouts and 8 trustees, and that's us on a fundraising walk in the Wheathampstead environment, raising money. 750 hours, yes, this is us in the Sally Army doing one of our Together Days. We do 3 of those a year, where we bring our team together because they don't overlap very much actually. And one of the big reasons for volunteering is to be connected. Yes, to serve, yes, to give one's skills and one's time, but also to connect with other members of the community. So we bring people together 3 times a year for CPD type activities, and we get external speakers and we do workshops and get people to, again, coming back to the sort of intimacy and trust, you know, we're working as a team. Any client can see any of us, so we need to be very consistent. We need to be very homogenous. We need to be able to rely on any one of our team to do and say pretty much the same thing, regardless of who you see. So you don't get that unless you invest in some relationship building. Why are we needed? Well, life is complicated, and a lot of the people who come to us because of a major life event, a bereavement, redundancy, diagnosis of serious ill health, some other crisis in their life. And it is, somebody used the word vulnerable. Yes, all of our clients are vulnerable in some way, even the guy who was a top earner in a very profitable industry, who actually had mental health needs because of the pressure of the work they were under and the bullying culture in the workplace. And so although they were well paid and very capable and highly educated with a good job, they were vulnerable because they were being bullied and exploited. And so vulnerability is probably a wider concept than we might think initially. Our aims, well, we want to ensure that nobody suffers because they lack the knowledge of their rights and their responsibilities, but also we aggregate the experiences that we learn from our clients in order to exactly do as you suggest and get upstream of problems and try to do some prevention by changing policies and strategies ahead of time. 4 popular misconceptions or common misconceptions are about the scale, the range, the depth and the impact. So on scale, we help a lot more people and we offer a lot more hours and a lot more equivalent value. If we had to buy the time of our volunteers, last year's figures came out at something like £859,000 if we had to pay those volunteers for their hours of service. And the scale across the districts last year, I think we had slightly shy of 10,000 people. So we operate on a very much bigger scale than much of the voluntary sector. The range, we deal with everything. We help anybody on anything. 2 exceptions: criminal matters, which the state picks up the tab for supporting people facing criminal prosecution, and commercial matters, which you're allowed, if you're in business, to offset against your tax. But other than those 2, we will help anybody about anything. And a corollary of that is that we end up being nothing for nobody in terms of what people can remember, because it's too broad and too many and various. Depth, we don't, as another popular misconception, merely broker and signpost. Okay, Fiona, you've got a consumer problem, we'll send you to the consumer service. We work at any number of levels of depth. We do some signposting, but much more often we will roll our sleeves up and do quite a thorough bit of analysis. It's another misunderstanding that the people who come to us will know what their problem is. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Why'd you go there if you don't know what your problem is? Wrong. Most people know what the consequences of the problem are. There's no money in the bank. They've got a bailiff at the door. They've got they're being summoned to appear for a possession hearing. But they don't necessarily know what's causing that. They don't know that it's because their adult child has tipped over the age where they no longer qualify for a benefit, and therefore they've had deductions, and therefore they're low in the bank. So one of the things that we have to do in terms of depth often is work out what the underlying problem, what the cause of the pain that's being felt is. And that can entail us in doing an assessment, which might be 45 minutes. It might require us to do an advice appointment, which could be an hour or two. It might be a series of those, because unpacking bureaucratic backlogs can take a lot of time. Anybody who's had a spat with EDF or British Gas will know the sorts of hours that you can expend picking the spaghetti that things, bills and liabilities going wrong. And all the way up to complex casework, and we have lawyers who give their time free, and that's at the sort of deepest end of the work, if you like. And the impact, the difference that we make for clients is often underestimated. And we, in the reports that you see, you will have seen, I think last year, the financial improvements for the people that we help was something like £180,000, which is incredible. That is money in the pockets of residents in the town who are largely going to spend that locally, because a very high proportion of the people that we help have disabilities and long-term health conditions, which is limiting in terms of how much travel they're doing.
Ask another question. Just sorry, because you can tell I'm quite engaged in this, but it seems to be there's quite a bit of overlap between your sort of scope of casework and probably what a number of local MPs are doing.
Yes, and we work with them a lot.
Okay, so
we back cases back and forward.
Right.
I think I've got 3 in my inbox at the moment.
Yeah, because I guess if someone wakes up with a problem, do I go to my MP or citizens' advice, or but you do actually sort of coordinate with the local MPs to sort of find the right home for the piece of work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And there are things they can do that we can't, and things that we can do that they can't. So yes, and not just the MP, there are a number of other sort of, so the money advice, do they call them the money advice service? Yeah, Richard there. So we work very closely with them, and what they do, their sort of unique bit of the offer is that they will handhold people until they are debt free. We don't have that capacity, and they will handhold people. They will actually go with them to different places. We don't have that capacity, but so yeah, we very much try to work with all sorts of partners to play to our strengths and theirs. So I've said about the scale, 40 people each working day. It makes me feel a bit weary. Look at the numbers. This said about preponderance of people with long-term health conditions, but a quarter of those we help come from minority communities, and a lot of those that we help are living in poverty, and 20% are from older age groups. We see more women than men, and that's thought to be, although we can't prove it positively, it's thought to be because single parents are overwhelmingly female. So our work works to reduce inequalities. I think that you probably see this, so you're familiar with this in the monitoring reports, but it's a, as you say, it's a snapshot, and we will look at some trends. But you can see the £180,000 income gain there. You can see that's a 1 year numbers. So those 373 clients, they're unique individuals. We may have seen them 2 or 3 times. That's not an activity, that's a unique person. Good age range there, and quite a spectrum of different issues in the middle. The yellow long-term health is in the 30s, and then another 9 disabled. So yes, sort of approaching half, which is astonishing when you think how healthy actually the local community is. And that tells you about the slant or the skew really of who we're helping. Yes, this just repeats what I've said already. We do anything, any advice on any subject for any person, and that's your sort of standard pie chart, which is usually a question: what's the amount of work you're doing in any given area, and that is relatively static. Although during COVID, employment went up; it nearly doubled, and in recent months, the housing element has gone up considerably. Debt actually went down during COVID because there was no enforcement. All bets were off. There were no bailiffs pursuing anybody, and debt has a long half-life. So it takes a long time to get its boots on and show its face. It's starting to now. We're just starting to see an extension of the length of time that it's taking us to fit people into a specialist debt appointment now. So that's how long it's taking. These charts are on our website, so you can keep track of these if you're so inclined. But what they show, the first one shows food bank and other crisis intervention. And you can see there it's quite stark that the amount of food bank vouchers and other crisis support that we've been giving has gone up very, very considerably. The next chart is on energy costs, I think, and the number of people that we've helped. It was slightly down over the summer, which was great, but it's climbing again now, as you might expect, with the colder weather and people needing to put the heating on. So those are quite a concern. We have had fairly significant sums of money in the form of vouchers, supermarket vouchers, energy vouchers to distribute. And whilst we are willing to use our position and the opportunity that we have, being a trusted local servant of people in need, nonetheless, I think it bears saying that giving things of value rather than intellectual value, advice, is a distortion for us and an unwanted one. It brings us into conflict with clients because we are having to apply criteria and turn people down occasionally if they don't meet the criteria, if they are asking for too many bites of the cherry in too short a period. And it does not do a great deal for our relationship with our clients, and it's not a very good use of our skill. Actually, we are trained to advise, not to issue vouchers. So that's become, those last two slides on sort of food vouchers and energy vouchers are a bit of a distortion. I don't think we're going to get away from it anytime soon, but it's not great. It causes higher incidence, very low incidence still, but a higher incidence of conflict and complaint and dissatisfaction and a sense of aggrieved clients. And volunteers don't like it when they're trained to advise that they're having to hold a line and not what people think. It's difficult.
May I ask how you came about having to do that in the first place?
Government, good question. Government wanted to get money out quickly to the right people and scratched around and thought, who's on the ground? Who's got boots on the ground? And it's us. You know, who's got that penetration? Who's got that range? Who's got that scope? Who's trusted? Who is equipped to be that agile that they can, within 12 hours of lockdown, turn around a service and deliver when it was all face to face and deliver it over the phone? You know, who has that capability? And it was us. And there's no getting away from it. We are well placed to do it, but it has consequences. Couple of case studies that you will have read about, probably. This was one from, I forget which quarter, but not that long ago. The photo isn't the actual person, obviously. We have confidentiality wouldn't disclose the person's identity. But a working mother with debts from gambling addiction, a spouse was living as a living carer with an elder relation. Ooh, what happened there? And it was difficult with 5 children and a job for this woman to access our service. So we had to be quite creative and fit in around the margins, which we were able to do, and set up some direct payments to make sure that the first tranche of all the money coming in went to the most important place, which is where she was living.
Are you meeting in person? Are you meeting in person or is it on the phone?
Both, about 15 to 20% is in person. We are surprised at how effective the phone can be, and we have offered various video enhanced, so Teams and Zoom and WhatsApp video we're trialling at the moment. But in the main, people find the phone is pretty good. Older people with hearing loss, not so much, but younger people find the phone quite good, quite usable. We do a callback service.
Yeah.
You get queued up by a receptionist, and that offers the opportunity for you to gather your documents, and we'll tell you what sort of documents you might need to gather. So at every point, we're trying to make sure we're expending the minimum amount of resource to move the person the maximum distance towards where they want to get to. I've spoken about debt, so we can skip past that one. The sorts of things that we do, you know, the verbs, well, we listen, we explore, we find out, we research, we contact, we make phone calls, we write letters, reassure, encourage, support. We don't want to be given the person's problem baby. We don't want to take the baby from them. What we want to do is get alongside them and equip them and encourage them and support them and provide mechanisms, template letters, down to even if someone lacks the confidence to make a phone call, we might say, well, let's sort of script it, some bullet points. We'll make the phone call together now. You start off. If you get stuck, give me the handset. And because what we're trying to do, our ethos is empowerment. We don't want to have people leave us feeling, well, they're great, I don't need to do anything anymore. What we want is for them to feel they're great, and now I've got a bit more of a handle on how I can do a bit more myself. So at the bottom, action planning. So we will often send people away with a few bullets. Probably we put too many bullets and we overestimate what they're capable of achieving, but that's our sort of goal. This was another local one, young woman discharged with money worries from hospital with ongoing health issues. And we did help her with supermarket vouchers and energy grant in a temporary way while we helped her to claim some benefits and while they were processed. So that's a bit easier for us to swallow if it's a stopgap. It's when it becomes an ongoing thing, and we're working actually with Trussell Trust, who give us some funding support so that we have an assessor advisor in 7 of the sites. And the idea there is that we try and engage with the users of the food banks to get them to grapple with the underlying problems rather than just sort of getting the food at a point of emergency. So yeah, we were advising on getting some carers in and reducing water on broadband and mobile phone charges. And we do a service called Keep More Money Appointments, which is funded by the energy regulator. When they're fined, they give the money to citizens advice and we bid for it. And we help people to reduce their outgoings. So even things like household insurance will help people to think about shopping around, and we can achieve quite a lot there. Impacts, yes, I've spoken a bit about that, but financially better off, reduced risk of eviction, and wider benefits to the volunteers actually, of being useful, being connected. It's the best thing for your well-being. I was listening to the founder of Positive Psychology, Martin Seligman, when he was asked what's the best thing to tell somebody with depression, he said, go out and find somebody to help. It's absolutely the best thing anybody can do. Where do we get our funding from? All over the place. We made, I think, 27 funding applications last year. It's a lot of what I do and a couple of my volunteers do. And we scratch around for the 50 quids and the £500 from Tesco Bags of Help and the co-op community groups. And we also applied to Bedford and Luton Foundation, Community Foundation, the Luton Airport local neighbours give us some money to help with the training. Yeah, we scratch around all over the place looking for money. Those are just some of the stats on the difference that our work makes, and it's good to know that 7 in 10 people think that we reduce their stress and improve their finances. One that's not on there was a surprise. We thought we would reduce their anxiety and help them sleep better. We didn't realise that would help their physical health. You know, how do you get from advice to physical health? But it's a continuum, and of course, if you're less stressed and you're sleeping, it will help your physical health. It will reduce your blood pressure and other physical markers. So I think we're almost at the end, Carl. Yeah, that's just to repeat the sorts of things that we do. You might not know that we help people draw up lasting powers of attorney. That will save you £1,000 if you ask a lawyer to do it. We've got Simon who loves doing those. He does them in person in the city centre hub, one afternoon every couple of weeks. Yeah, it's sort of life admin is what we do really. And we're in Salvation Army on Mondays in the morning. And there is a video that we had produced for recruitment purposes, but it's only 2 minutes long, and it does a marvellous job of giving you an insight into what we're like. So, pray for your indulgence.
That's a good start. I'll go with it.
Very impressed, Carl. You got
Look,
lots.
I had stopped work when my children were born, and they both started primary school, and I wanted to do something that was going to be interesting, use my brain. I look forward to it every time I come in, and you learn so much.
I really love volunteering here, I really do. For me, it's been a lifeline because my wife died 5 years ago, and they were just, very welcoming, very supportive. They gave me a sense of purpose. I spent most of my life trying to help the corporate life and some way helping myself, but now it's time to help others. I was thinking, maybe it's not for me to give her halfway through the training. It's definitely just for me because it's the type of thing I want to do.
I thought it'd be very much just dealing with sort of the benefits of a day, or a couple of sort of homelessness issues here and there, but it's really sort of a wide range of issues from sort of county court judgments all the way through to immigration issues.
The training experience was quite demanding in terms of the amount of areas to cover.
It's very detailed, very methodical, extremely well delivered. Then when you finish the training, you feel very much ready to do the job.
Supervisors are literally on hand all the time. So anything that's slightly tricky, difficult, advice is there and support all the way.
I've been in an office that's been so sort of warm and welcoming. I don't think there's been anyone that I've spoken to that I felt that I haven't gotten on with.
We've all kind of got to know each other, really well. We kind of now go out on an evening to socialise.
The people and just the nature of the job and the sense of reward that it gives you, really.
The feeling you get when you help people is so nice. It's a fulfilling job because every time you end up with a call, most of the time there's massive gratitude coming from the client to thank you for helping.
I would say that if you want something that keeps your mind active and you work with like-minded people that can be challenging at times, it's probably for you. It's not always easy, but it's always rewarding.
And Sarah, who featured there as a 20-year service volunteer, was the advisor who saw a client here 20 years ago with a new baby, having been the victim of a horrendous episode of domestic violence where the partner was eventually jailed, and saw the client last year, and the baby is now doing very well and is expected to get a place at university to do a STEM subject. And the client wanted some advice about bringing to an end the requirement of the divorce, which was that they made available the child periodically to the non-resident parent for contact with letters and she wanted to know whether she could cease doing that now they'd come of age, which was a nice way for us to find out that actually the things that we put in place 20 years ago, allowing her to get back to work even after this awful experience, and now they're both able to contribute to the community. So that was really nice.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
So you will have seen that we're asking you for money. Spoil the buzz now. And we would very much like to keep doing what we're doing and do a bit more of it. And also to add, if it's possible, to our work of working with other organisations to try to leverage the low-hanging fruit that they can help us to deliver, and to make sure that we're as joined up a network of local services as we can be, and that takes time and money and effort and people time. So hence the request. Any questions before?
Would you like to increase your time in Harpenden? You said you're here Monday mornings. Is there a need, do you think, for you to have more time here?
Difficult to say. The pattern is so irregular. There are days when we can't see everybody. There are other days when we don't get enough people coming in person. It's very up and down. Advice seeking generally is very volatile. You've been in the office, you will have seen my graphs about how there are very few other businesses that can go from 500 a month to 1,000 a month, and back down again without having to make restructures and redundancies. But it is that volatile, that variable. So I don't know is the answer. I was last week speaking to Harpenden Trust and being shown around their new facilities. And I'm wondering whether if we get the funding to do an outreach at the sort of advice first aid working with other groups, whether that might be focused there to service that area of need, and Batford particularly. So maybe is a sort of... Thank you.
If there are no more questions, thank you very much, June.
Thank you very much for your interest and your attention and your enthusiasm. And I will now be very rude and depart. If I could be excused.
I could now call on Andy Buchanan and Richard Cook for the Harpenden Hopper presentation.
Thank you so much. I haven't got video and I haven't quite as many charts and graphs, but it does seem to be the night for asking you lovely people for money and sport. I'm going to keep this relatively brief because looking at that agenda, you have a pretty busy night ahead of you. So is it the right hand one, Carl?
Yeah, it should be if it's working. If you point it at me.
Okay, put it at you.
Yeah, and then what? There you go. It's seamless.
Perfect.
You go back again.
It's almost like we planned it. So, yeah, I'm Andy Buchanan. I'm the chairman of the Harpenden Hopper, and this is Richard, one of our trustees. Has everyone heard of the Harpenden Hopper? Okay, probably some of you, like a lot of people, don't know totally what it is. Wondered. So, well, I thought I'd start with that is actually the Hopper. You probably see it milling about. So, what is it? Well, it is actually a community bus service which is running under a Section 22 permit approved by the Transport Commissioner with a designation of HH1. So just like you have the 321, which is probably the most popular bus that
if your kids go anywhere to school, it's always they're all on 321. And if you're going to Luton Airport, you're on 321. So our designation is HH1, Harpenden Hopper 1. So any bus stop that it goes past, you will see on the little timetable, you will actually see the HH1. And so, as I say, it's licensed to run under the Transport Commission with a 22. There's two that are 19 and a 22. They are designated as community/charitable services. If you're the 321, you're with a different type of license, but it is a licensed service for about 6 years. And every time you alter the service, you have to reapply for alterations, and it's pretty laborious. We have changed the route twice, but it takes time. It's kind of ask forgiveness, not permission. So you may run it while you're waiting for it because you usually get that permission, but it is a fairly technical thing. A lot of people think it's just like a minibus for hire. It's not, it is a designated bus route, and it follows a published set timetable. So it is hail and ride. So it's really for people that can walk and get onto a bus. So it's not designated, it's not like dial a ride. So it's not designated for people with wheelchairs per se. It's for people that, you know, doesn't have to walk fast, but can actually walk and get on and off a bus. And so we now run that route. It's a hail and ride. So you can actually, as long as you're on the route, so for instance, Tufnells up in Roundwood, we have 2 designated stops really, but anywhere on that route, just put your hand up, stop it. And if it's safe to do so, driver pulls in, you can get on or you can get off. So it is a hail and ride. The only place we don't really hail and ride is coming down Station Road. For obvious reasons, it's tricky there and getting worse. So it covers approximately 40% of the residential areas of Harpenden. So it goes from Roundwood and it'll go broadly into Eastmoor Park and up round Red House and down again. It doesn't touch places like Batford, which is often the biggest question we get asked is why not. At the moment, although the residents want to agree with you, it has more buses than anywhere else in Harpenden. I've become a bus geek and a bit of a bus nerd. Never ever thought I'd hear myself say that. I am having therapy, but the Batford still has more buses than anywhere else, but they're not always at the right time. So you can get from South down to Batford, but you can't get back unless you stay overnight somewhere and then come back the next day, which isn't helpful. Sorry, pointing at you. Ooh. Oh, I have a little techie do that. Well, I've opened the door with the clicker. That would be pretty remarkable. Hello, David.
Just doing the planning meeting at district.
So we use 2 minibuses, which are, this is where you lovely people come in, which are leased from yourselves. And I'll go into the history of that in a couple of slides. And it operates, and this is the only reason it can operate, because we have about 25 volunteer drivers, which is a lot harder to get, as we all know. Volunteers are a lot harder than money. And it's about £2 per trip, or it's a bus pass. So if people have a bus pass, they show it to the driver. We're not massively sophisticated, but they show it, we record it, and they go for free. If not, it's £2 per trip. Some exceptions where all Ukrainian refugees, children under 16, all go for free. And we are part of the £2 bus scheme that's national to try and keep fares down. Quite fortunately, we were only £2 anyway. So we credit ourselves with that. Yeah, we weren't anyway. And it's run by Harpenden Connect. So we call ourselves the Harpenden Hopper, but the charity is Harpenden Connect, registered charity, limited by guarantee, 6 trustees, treasurer, chair, etc., etc. Richard does all our private hire. We have a company secretary, etc. So it's completely volunteer run. So we have no paid staff at all, which you can tell if you look at our website. It's definitely I would call it retro. It's probably the best way to describe it. We have no volunteers. Sorry, we have no paid staff. So we have no administrative staff paid. It is basically just a bunch of us doing stuff. And so I have a maintenance guy who in the 70s used to run a fairground in Kent. He just can turn his hand to pretty much anything. I think he mainly uses a hammer, but we don't know. But stuff gets fixed. So that's how that is pretty much it. So why was it set up? Well, it was set up to really cover 6 things: loneliness, isolation, reducing car journeys into the town centre, reducing congestion, reducing pollution. I sat in a transport meeting, I think here or maybe downstairs, when a guy from London had just come out of London and he had a load of really cool gear. This is about 2016, 2017, which could measure pollution. And apparently that had been his gig in London. Turned out right outside the station at 10 to 9 in the morning, you might have noticed there's quite a few 4x4s, hard to miss. The pollution outside the station on Station Road was only 10% less than a London road. And so one of the reasons we were looking at this was, yes, reduces congestion, but also pollution, and also try and start alleviating the parking constraints in the town centre, particularly as Waitrose now have little wardens, etc. So our finances, our operating costs are about 12 grand a year, which isn't that much. If we have volunteer drivers, you could add another 600 quid a week, roughly, 1,000 quid a week with on costs. So it would really be untenable. The leasing of the minibuses, we lease under an SLA with yourselves, and I'll give you the history of that. The insurance is probably our highest because we have 24 volunteer drivers, some over 70. There's an unwritten rule at 75, you probably stop driving. Yeah, stay at the back, yeah, and at least get your eyes checked. So they do get their eyes checked. Sorry, that was a joke, just in case someone in there, gosh, the hopper runs and they don't have eye tests. So insurance-wise, we have 2 coming up to 75. Ironically, 2 of our fittest play tennis every day, but there's kind of putting an unwritten rule that that's probably a good time for them to stop. Also, over 75, our insurance does go up. To give you an idea, that fluctuates between 3,000 and 4,000 quid. So out of our 12, it's probably one of our biggest. There have been the odd little scrape here and there, which is not surprising when they only drive it once, twice a month, and it's getting worse and it's fairly big. Travels Road is a classic for that. We don't get the bus repaired. We have to get everything else repaired. The bus actually rarely gets any more than a scratch. It's fuel, obviously that's gone up. It's diesel, which isn't great, but it's reasonably economic, but you don't really ever get out 3rd gear because it's only around town. But fortunately, we're only really doing maybe 30 miles a day. And maintenance repairs. And as they get older, that obviously is going up. Pan Autos are brilliant. They give us great discounts, and Hicks do for free our accounts. That's because one of our trustees, I think, knows them well. Our sources of income. Well, concession fares, I won't go into this. This is really quite complicated. Every single bus is subsidised in Hertfordshire pretty much. And the pot from Herts County Council, and it's a very, very complex system. You sit on a call where basically they tell you what they're going to do, all the bus. So you sit there with Uno, Arriva, let's call it Arriva, and a load of the others. And it's like a sort of negotiation where some of you are in the meeting and then leave the meeting and vice versa, and you all end up agreeing on this pot. And it seems to be divided by how big you are as a bus company and how many passengers you run. Theoretically, it's supposed to be every time a passenger gets on, you get about 48% of your published fare. So as it's 2 quid, so roughly we'll be getting about 98p. It never quite seems to work that way, so there must be other formulas at play, but because we're so small, we really don't have that much influence. But millions of pounds a year get spent subsidising all the buses, even the 321. So we get a regular amount every month. We publish how many passengers we've done, and we then get money in return. Sometimes, being really honest, it's hard to correlate whether the two actually have anything to do with each other. We're not complaining because we get monthly money. Paid fares, and we do get a lot. And what's really sweet, even though the bus passes are regulars, often we've got a little charity thing you just find at the end of the week, money being put in there, which is great. And then grants, we're St Albans District Council Community Project, love us. They come on the bus twice a year. I think they probably sub it just so they can go on the bus, don't know, but they're lovely. And then recently, one of our other biggest benefactors is Harpenden Building Society, that this year gave us about £4,000, which, out of 12, that's really good. So we've just done some publicity for them, pretty much do anything for them, particularly give us more next year. And so with that, that's a large amount. In the past, we've done all the other charitable raises, wine tastings, quizzes, etc., to raise money. So just to give you a little brief history, it started because I spoke to a mayor and was just talking about what could I do to help serve the community, and some of the issues that came up that we thought could be addressed by a community bus were the ones mentioned, loneliness and isolation. I stupidly said, I'll start a bus company. It took nearly 3 years because I had no idea what to do. I'm very entrepreneurial, not that great at completer finishing, really good at blue sky thinking, not that great at actually making things happen. But fortunately, there were people around who were a lot better than me at that. But a friend and I bought 2 buses ourselves. I told my wife, he didn't tell his, that was awkward at a party when he declared, I said, hey, do you love the bus he bought? I didn't know he bought it. There we go. We're still friends, but not with her. So we bought those in about 2015, 2016. We worked out a route. We obtained the license, got that wrong 3 times. We filled the form out wrong twice. It was complicated. And then we recruited some volunteers. Right, I stood up at the Methodist Church, said, anyone would love to drive a train? Can't help you. Fire engine, can't help you. Bus, I can help you. And that's how we got our first drivers. And we ran it for, trained them to Midas. That's the standard for minibus drivers. It's the gold standard. And then we started operating Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursdays. See the little Midas, lost the Midas tap. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tough crowd. Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, we operated. Unfortunately, that was the original bus.
Oh, no.
Utter, can't say the word, not good.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for that. But they weren't great. Okay, we had them wrapped in Essex, and coming back from Essex, they had been pushing it a bit too hard, but the wrapping started coming off, which wasn't great. But luckily, no one could see the top because it was actually quite tall, so we left it. Sellotaped it down. But they were so unreliable that we couldn't operate a reliable service. And your license says if you don't run that day, you're breaking your license. So it was a real problem. And of course, we had a phone line and people were ringing, where's the bus? Where's the bus? So as we all know, unreliable service, passengers have just got to stop using you. So we had a problem. And this is where you lovely people, Harpenden Town Council, came in. Thank you. You guys got involved. You provided the capital costs to purchase 2 brand new buses, about £31,000 each. And under a 5-year SLA agreement that runs out in March 2024, we run it on your behalf and pay a rent, not much, £2,500 a year roughly. There were some differences over COVID. By the way, over COVID, we ran it as a food delivery truck for the food banks, put perspex up, took all the seats out and ran it as food delivery trucks because we couldn't run the service, mainly because of the elderly nature of most of the passengers, and all our drivers were volunteers. So as trustees, we felt, whereas normal bus drivers were working, we felt we couldn't do that. So it was then on a real volunteer basis, who wants to drive as a food truck. So that was very successful. The basis that, in effect, our SLA with the Town Council was based on, if you have reliable buses and newer buses and warmer buses and buses that weren't going to break down, then we would have a more frequent service, i.e. would increase the service from 3 days a week, and that the passenger numbers would grow. And critically as well, because you have to have 2 buses by licence, one as a backup to the other, because they're new, you probably don't ever, and we've never had to back one up with the other while it's been on the route. Therefore, you can private hire a second bus, which one was helping the community. Yes, it raises some money for us as well, but more importantly, it was doing more for the community. And so the service today is, we're now getting, actually in the other morning, we had 37, which means we probably, was it this week, Rich, or last week, mate?
Monday.
Last week. So probably when I get the numbers, that 165 may have gone up. Passengers are predominantly older, but not always. We often now get grandparents with their grandchildren getting on. We do have some mums with prams. Initially, those old buses, by the way, I think I was saying this to yourself, I had never thought this, but of course that county council type size bus often is used for other things, and some people wouldn't get on it because it looked like they may have certain needs that they didn't want to be associated with. I had never thought that, but we had probably 20 to 30 people say that. So again, another reason to swap buses to make it look, and why we try and make it like it's got a frog on it, for instance, and it's green, and again, we're trying to make it not look like Dial-A-Ride or a old person's bus. So we get a variety of people. Some of the feedback, we ran a tea party at St Nick's the other day, St Parts had, and again, they think it's great, they love it, think it's a lifeline, etc., etc. And it's built a little community. So the drivers will ask, anyone seen so-and-so? The other people getting on will go, anyone seen so-and-so? You know, when one of our regulars broke their hip, the drivers and the passengers wanted to drop off a card and chocolates. Every Easter and Christmas, they give the drivers chocolates. So it's sort of building a community. The guys will go out of their way if it's literally a minute to just go like that. So someone can be outside the house to help them off with their shopping, then we sanction them to do that. Yeah, if it's going to be 20 minutes and break the route, no. But we're saying use your common sense here. It's a community bus. We're not on a punctuality drive. Use your common sense to try and help those that use it. And the route's expanded. So originally it was a shorter route. Now, as I say, we go right across town. The only places we don't go are into West Common, which interestingly, a lot more elderly, those that moved in the 60s, interestingly, an Asian population that aren't driving so much or don't want to park, and Batford. Our dilemma with that is, the more you do, if you go above a morning, so our morning shifts ends at 12:30. If you go past 1, people feel it's eating into their afternoon and they flake out, and vice versa. So if you keep it as a morning and an afternoon, so you've still got your whole afternoon or you've still got your whole morning, we've had no one flake. Whereas when we tried to do longer shifts, people had excuses why they couldn't make it that month or that week or whatever. So if you expand it, you need more volunteers. They're not easy to get. So we've got 25, we'll have 23 next year. We get about 4 a year, roughly. We've now got 3 ladies as well, because it's a very easy bus to drive, whereas the previous one, being blunt, lots of us guys didn't particularly like driving. It's 5 tons and as wide as this, and it so it wasn't an easy drive. So for now, I'd say running 5 days a week, except bank holidays, 9:30 to 4:30. And the trend, yeah, it's gone up. That 400 is now closer to 450, 500. So we are seeing a trend. My day job is consulting, but like you were saying, and my day job's in sales. You can argue this either way, being blunt, that we're doing an amazing service, or that's a very small amount of Harpenden. And this is where it's a dilemma. I spend my day with ROI calculators. You know, is this good value for money, whatever. Some things you just can't put a price on. The community stuff we're building, because if you priced it per passenger and you had to pay your drivers, you couldn't justify it. However, from a green perspective, my view is if you are not visible, no one will ever use it. So unless people are seeing it go round and round, no one will ever use it. If you only ever start things when people are definitely going to use it, very few things in life would ever get started, particularly in local government and the local environment. So we are seeing this. This was awkward. I used to have to bribe the drivers with beer and curry, saying, I know you saw nobody today, but trust me, build it and they will come. or drive it and they will come. And it did, but this was awkward because if you did the afternoon shift, because 70% of our journeys are in the morning, you could see nobody. You do 4 shifts, you could do every day of the week and see nobody because people didn't know what it was. People didn't want to use it, didn't want to go on that bus, whatever. But now it's very rare to have any shift where they see absolutely no one, as say the small Monday morning, so last Monday 37. So the private hire side, which was critical to the SLA, these are the sort of people. Richard's got 4 coming up in the next few days. We do a lot of Hartland and Trust. They are getting their own minibus, but that's a self-drive arrangement. So I was talking to them, said, yeah, they asked, would it compete? I said, no, knock yourself out, more the merrier. It's a different kind of model. Daylight Club, they only go out in the day.
Don't.
Couldn't resist. The Clover Singers, anyone know the Clover Singers? They're a great choir. Hartland and Probus, Hartland Methodist Church use it for all their youth stuff. We take them to Birmingham and all over the place. St Albans Hartland Care Society. These guys run, you know, there's a lot of refugees in the hotel in Markyate. There's hundreds in there. They get £8 a week. And so the bus takes them to St Albans once a week for free so that they don't waste their £8 on, or £6 of it apparently on bus fares. Home, house. Class on a Common, we run as a shuttle service. So we go from Rothamsted down to the roundabout by the fire station and back for the whole bit. And YWAM are great. We have an SLA with YWAM. That's where we park our buses up at the Oval. There's not that many places where you can park 2 buses and have a small bit of office space for all the stuff the drivers need, and you can work on those buses. Okay, so we have an SLA with them, and basically they're allowed. Their drivers have gone through training, or some of their members, and obviously it rotates a bit because they're fairly transient. So they can use it. So they do a lot of airport trips with them, or dropping them down to the station or whatever. And it works well for us because we get the parking for nothing. If we had to pay for it, that'd be very expensive. So as you can see, we're pretty cheapskates. We get free Hicks doing it for free, Pan cheaper, YWAM cheaper. Really just keep those costs down. So that comes on to our options going forward. As I say, the SLA runs out. So you guys own those buses. And interestingly, because of COVID, second-hand prices have gone up. Those 31k buses are still worth probably 20, possibly even more. It depends because they're low mileage. They've only done 20.
30.
Yeah, 30k, how many salesmen? 20. Yeah, so in 4 years, the 5 years there, that's low. So they could be worth up to 25 grand, but they're definitely worth about 20. Whereas when we first did it, we thought they'd be worth something like 12, 13, 14. You lose about half. So ends with you in March. So we have a number of these, and I know that there's other things going on in the background around transport. So I think you've got these slides. So these are for your deliberations, but we could just give them back. You could reuse the money for something else, and we just stop the service. Basically, we can't raise enough cash to buy our own buses. We raise enough to run it, and we can probably raise more than that 12. But when we tried previously, other than paying out of our own pockets, which certainly his wife wouldn't be keen on, my wife, yeah, maybe, we're not going to be able to buy our own buses. And so looking for support with that, and those options could be renew the SLA to just carry on running for a year, whatever, with or without some money for that aging. As I say, we raise 12 grand a year. I'm sure we can raise a few more K than that, but we reckon our servicing and maintenance costs will increase probably about 10 to 20% each year as they go. We have to do 10-week checks. So we have to MOT them every 10 weeks because of the license that every bus does.
I was just going to say, are they diesel or petrol?
They're diesel, yeah.
The new ones are as well.
Yeah, so well, there's some options here. Yeah, I mean, for a while when we were running the old ones with no passengers, we were actually polluting more than we were stopping pollution, which was bizarre. You're thinking, I'm trying to stop pollution here, and yet we're running a 5-ton bus with nobody on it, which is not great. So we could keep the ones as they are and sweat those with the increasing issues that we may or may not have, or we could renew the SLA with a number of options. One could be straight 2 new diesels. I don't really think we want diesels. Yes, they're the latest, so they're ULEZ compliant and blah, 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 but they're still diesels pumping out, you know, lots of fumes. We could keep one and just replace one of them. Or originally I looked at buying an electric bus 8 years ago. It was £250,000 back then. It was cool. It's a Chinese company, very, very cool. We went to see it actually, not in China, but very cool. And it actually charged by going past lampposts in China and picking up electricity from the road. Unfortunately, here our lampposts run at 6 kilowatts, so Tesla charger is 100, so it won't work. But very cool technology. A new bus, roughly, approximately 84k, but obviously minus the trade-in of one brings that down to 64k. Ultimately, electric has to be the way we go. The problem with them at the moment is they're unknown against reliability. We are talking to YWAM about putting in electric points, and they have a biomass unit that this would be very cool, could we generate the electricity with their biomass to charge our bus, which got to be probably as green as you can get. Who knows? So that was my idea. It might be a little bit blue sky there, but anyway. So that they're kind of the options. You could argue we don't need to do anything too straight away. Come 1st of April, they're not going to suddenly both stop. They're not going to suddenly break down. They're just going to be 5 years old, and the SLA has come to an end. So that's it. Questions? Is that giving you a bit more of an insight?
Are you allowed to take dogs on the bus?
Yes. Yes, we have had dogs on the bus. It's not a regular occurrence, but yeah, there's no real issue with having dogs, preferably with an owner, unless they're putting money in.
Can I go back to the figures, sorry, that
Yes.
that you put up for, with the graph for 2023?
Yes,
I think you showed it as 400,
yes.
just to drill down. It was this one here,
Average journey per month, yeah.
per month, so that would then, if we, let's go on to 23, so that would be 100 a week. average.
Yes. And we had 37 just last Monday. So if you times that up, you get easily to 100. Now, their journeys, so we worked out, we don't take people's name and addresses, we don't even scan their cards. So we think that equates to, we're helping approximately 300 to 350 people in Harpenden. That's why I said earlier, you look at it and go, yeah, brilliant, but it's a small subset. The ones that use it, this is like any bus, the ones that use the bus, it's critical for them. And this is always the dilemma. If you talk to Regan, I spoke to the old MD who helped us set this up, of Uno, older chap, who was assisting me, broadly telling me what I was doing was wrong, which he was correct. But he was saying, here's our dilemma. Every time you cut a bus, even if there's only 10 people on it, those 10 people are trying to get to work. In our case, it's not like that. It's very rare. There is one young man from Roundwood that does use it to get to work, and without that, he's relying on other people to give him lifts. Most of ours, some of them are coming out and they don't even get off. They do the loop because they want to talk to people. They want to chat to the driver. They want to just talk to somebody else. They may get off. So others would go, oh, I'm a bit early for my appointment. Do you mind if I stay on and come round? Sure, no problem.
So that looks like the average journey is about 3 miles.
Yes. So it broadly is Derwent, Kingsmore Green, to Church Green is roughly the longest. Then you go off around Red House and all that malarkey back to Church Green. Then we go out to Eastmoor Park. That's top of Eastmoor Park, get quite a lot there. Then come down Cravels and then along and in. So yeah, your two endpoints at the moment, Eastmoor Park, Roundwood. And some of them get on at Roundwood, and go all the way to Eastmoor Park. May get off, may just stay on and go all the way back. And then we go up at the back of Townsend and around there. And people that get on at Townsend often stay on and thought you lived in Townsend. And they just got on the loop, which is totally fine. And so you realise that, you're serving a number of purposes, not just transportation, which was why it was initially isolation and loneliness. So again, I look at that sometimes and go, wow, that's amazing. Now there's not that many, but of those, that 300-ish, 350, let's say at GDPR, we can't take the names and addresses anyway. But to them, it's a critical services. The big issue always is you have money for buses, but it's keeping volunteers. And we all know what that's like.
Are they mostly elderly people? Because I'd sort of assumed that it was a service for.
Yeah, in the main, it's those that don't want to drive or have given their cars back. 3 of our guys who've literally given their cars back decided, often something's happened, they've had something. One guy had cataracts, they couldn't drive for a little few weeks, and they thought, well, I've got a car, I'll give it back. Others had a little bit of a health scare and I don't really want to be driving into Harpenden. A lot who can't drive or are too elderly, but then you do get some youngsters. The bit we've never managed to get, and this is partly because we don't have anyone full-time on social media, is we do get some kids during school holidays. That'd be perfect for them. You know, you live out there, you don't want to walk all the way from Derwent. We've never managed to really crack. Come on, you can get on the bus, you know, come on down, you know, under 16 for free, for every 62 quid. You know, your parents would probably give you the 2 quid so they didn't have to drive you.
Yeah.
What's your utilisation? So typically during the day, are you sort of 25% full, 50% full, 75%
Right.
full?
So of course, first thing, when you pick up in Derwent, you might pick up 2. So by the time you get there, you could have 8 to 10. Then you might have nobody when you go around the next bit till you pick up a bunch more. If we never have, a bit like nearly every bus, it's rare to have it. You've got all 16 seats, it's 17 driver plus 16. It's rare to have all 16 full. Because like all buses, the whole point of them is very few are going from one end to the other. That does happen with 3 to 1. Some go to Watford to Luton Airport to work. A lot of people from Watford work at Luton Airport, interestingly. That 3 to 1 is their lifeline. So ours, you're usually getting on at one place to be dropped in town and then to be picked back up, unless they're going for the ride. So yeah, you rarely have all 16. Probably most you'd have to get 37. You've probably had 10. You probably had 10 on at any one time, and that's because as you've come in, you've picked a few more up. Now you've got a lot on. So any more questions on?
I wouldn't get too hung up about the diesel thing. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you are buying a new one and it's got urea in it, then what comes out the back of it is pretty negligible for a start.
Really?
Yeah. And you only do 15,000 miles a year. It's not.
Yeah, probably less. Probably less. We're probably doing 30 miles a day, 5 days a week, plus some higher.
When you think about a car doing 15,000 a year with 1 or 2 people in it, or your bus averaging what it does, I don't think it's the wrong thing.
That's a good take, because these days
you spend 65,000 on an electric one, and then you've got a wood chip boiler. Well, where are they getting the wood chip from? Because they've not got trees to cut down. So where's the sustainability with that? Stick to what you know.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Well made. Diesel, just everyone, you know, it's
Sad, really.
Sorry, you know, I'm a bit confused about what journeys mean. Is that people journeys?
Yes. Yeah, oh yeah, that's people. So when you get on, wherever they get on, they'll show their card, and we have something called a Tixium machine, which is buses use, which basically registers a person. So it's registered as a concession or as a paid or as a child. So every time anyone gets on it, so if one person comes into Church Green and then goes out, that's 2 journeys. But interestingly, one of our big dilemmas is everyone wants convenience. So even some of our regulars that say, please keep this going, we love it. If they're a bit tight on time, there's a lady in her 80s will walk down Kingsbourne Green Lane to get the 321 because it gets her to Church Green 4 minutes before we do. So again, even there, you're going, it's a mindset, you know, everyone gets in their cars. And default is convenience. And so ours is as close to you'll get as a taxi, really, as a bus service, because we're going round the residential bits. To be fair, though, we know why Roundwood didn't have any buses, because that's why we started it, because there's the Fernie place with no buses. We found out why, because no one uses a bus. So that's why there wasn't one. It's getting better, but that is a big challenge. Is even our regulars will nip down the road because it's slightly quicker. So a lot will come in and won't come back with us. And then quite a few we take back to Eastmoor have got in another way. Come in with a friend, got a different bus. Occasionally they've got a taxi because they're going somewhere and then they've gone to the doctor's, walked into town and then get the bus back. Hence why 400 doesn't just mean 200 people with two journeys. That's why we think it's more like 350, because it's not there and back.
Where could that growth go, do you think?
Well, technically, going back to your utilisation point, I mean, you know, wouldn't it be great if you had 16 people on it? Don't know what the rules are on standing, like a normal bus. Probably there isn't one. You probably can't, but it would be great to have that stacked. And then what you'd love, but you'd need more volunteers, is could you have the second bus running behind it? So you could have more buses, but you then need more volunteers, because I don't think it's sustainable. St Albans are paying 15 quid an hour now for drivers. Pre-COVID, that was 10 quid, and they still can't get drivers. So, yeah, big problem. 15 quid living around here, you can't live around here. So, yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions, I think we can say thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Very good. Numbers going up.
Yes, it is. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we can move on to the rest of our agenda now, starting with the Mayor's report. The first item is just to say that the St Albans District Council has been listening to councillors about staff car parking spaces in Enbury Lane car park. And so we have no definite news yet. The signs are encouraging. That's all we can say at the moment. I could report on the Christmas Carnival and thank councillors as well as officers really for a very successful event. And thank you very much to councillors who have, I know, been stepping into the breach, switching on lights, and it's been great. So great to many thanks to everyone who participated or is still participating. We've got 2 more switch-ons to go. And I could remind councillors about the carol concert on the 12th of December. I know a couple of you have said to me you're coming, which is great. 12th of December, 6 p.m, St Nicholas Church. And if you want to tell Jane, if you're going, she'll reserve a place for you down at the front where councillors will be sitting. Thank you. Do we have any public questions?
None received, Madam Mayor.
Or any questions which have previously been submitted?
And again, none received.
Well, we can move to the minutes of the council meeting held on 25th of September. Any comments about these, or can they be accepted and signed in the correct record? No comments? Well, I'll sign them at the end. We now move to minutes of committees and working parties. And as our presentations went on for a bit of a while, what I'm going to do is just take for us to note all of these minutes at the same time, rather than taking them individually. So that could I have a show of hands if you're happy to do that? Yes, thank you. We now move to the forward plan and the resolution tracker, page 17 to 23. And to, I pass to the town clerk, please, to introduce the item.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is the standing item, the resolution tracking forward plan that you'll be familiar with. Just to add a couple of comments on a couple of the items, Madam Mayor, under the resolution tracker. Firstly, on page 20, in relation to the item on the storage depot, myself and some town councillors met with some district council officers last month, and we're awaiting some action from them and some feedback on the next steps in relation to the potential acquisition of the depot and also some of the other surrounding land around the Rothampton Park is currently retained at the district. As and when I hear any updates from that, we'll keep you informed through the information bulletin on that particular one.
Thank you.
Just a couple of other things, Madam Mayor, if I may. The flooding on Station Road, so we continue to try to engage county council colleagues and Thames Water, and as and when we get updates on that, we will again share through the bulletin. You may have noticed that at the moment the South Down Gully has got some fencing up and some machinery, so that is actually our contractor carrying out a kind of a dredging of the gully. The gully and the ponds are a key flood surface water mitigation measure in this town, and it is the direct action that the town council can take to help surface water. So that dredging is part of our regular maintenance and management. It's quite a costly exercise, but is very, very important. If you're ever interested and it's raining and you want to see the ponds performing, quite often we run out there in the rain to make sure the flow is working properly. So it should take the surface water from the town down the gully and then into the 3 draining ponds to deal with any issues that have. That part of the mitigation in the town works really, really well. And as you've heard before, some of the other parts of the infrastructure that is dated and probably not as fit for purpose these days. And the last thing to mention, Madam Mayor, is in relation to the pavilion. We were originally due to bring the pavilion planning documents back to this meeting, Madam Mayor, and you'll be aware that we have to commission a series of comprehensive surveys covering all sorts of different issues. Essentially, some of the surveys have taken longer than we had expected or hoped. And so those planning documents will come forward in January now. We can't produce the planning documents till we've got the full set of surveys. There was also one change in relation to biodiversity net gain that was coming into play, I believe, this month on a certain date. And we had the dilemma where if we were to commission the survey before the date, by the time it came to submitting the planning documents next year, we would have to recommission the survey because of the change. So we decided to pause that one as well when we knew some of the other ones were behind. So that will come through to council in January, Madam Mayor. And I think that's it for me. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, sorry, technical point on page 15. I know we went through the note of the report, but there's a recommendation to council. Yeah, page 15.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, absolutely right. This is. Yes.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, that recommendation, you're quite right to spot that, Councillor Ellis. There is a short paper at the end of the agenda pack that picks up that recommendation, so that'll be dealt with.
That was in due course. Yeah. Well, if there are no more questions at this point, let's move on to the.
Madam Mayor, I have a question on page 21, the tracker on the car park allocation. I don't know whether the original resolution was correctly worded, but I mean, it seems to be just writing a letter isn't the end of the matter. I think we need an acceptable response and a resolution to the issue regarding the spaces itself. So yes, we've sent a letter, but I'm not sure.
Sorry, is this?
So page 21.
Page
21.
Yeah. 21, sorry. Yeah.
So this is the resolution about the car parking spaces in the leisure centre.
Well, as I just said in my report, we've been hearing encouraging messages from St Albans District Council, but it's not completely definite yet. And so action is being taken following the following the requests and demands indeed of councillors from Harpenden Town Council.
Yeah, so that's understood. I'm just, the item is marked here as complete. I mean, we've sent a letter.
Oh, I see what you mean.
We have, I mean, that's not the end of the issue. I think we need a resolution of the issue, which is essentially an agreement between us and the district council as to a revision of the number of spaces, particularly a reduction of the number of spaces, particularly for for the leisure centre staff. So I think my view is that is when the action is complete, not when we've sent a letter. That is my point.
Perhaps that could be put to January to say what some of the other.
Yes, so just to clarify, so this is progress against the resolutions that were made at council. So this isn't, we're not saying the issue is complete or resolved. The resolution was to send a letter, and that resolution has been complete. So that's how we track. This is kind of, it's not an action plan tracker. It's what was the resolution and has that been complete or in progress? So that resolution was to send a letter. A letter was sent, so the resolution track is complete.
Yes.
Although the issue may be outstanding.
Okay, so where are we tracking the issue of the parking spaces themselves?
Well, I think we're going to hear pretty soon.
Yeah, that's the idea.
From St Albans District Council.
District Council is talking with SLM. They're a long way down that road in negotiations, but they haven't yet concluded them, and because it's a contractual issue, there's nothing more that I know or anybody else knows said at the moment. But it is, all the signs are looking that favourable to it. There will be an outcome that is acceptable.
Yeah, understood. But this
the paperwork, where is
paperwork,
it?
this is causing friction. People are giving negative feedback about, and quite rightly, in my opinion, giving negative feedback, being frustrated about the number of spaces that are allocated to council staff, people being ticketed, and so on. As we know. So my point is, my question is, where is that action to gain resolution of that issue?
We're looking at the resolution tracker at the moment, and we haven't formed another resolution. I don't think it's necessary for us to form another resolution because we're just hearing that we're going to be hearing news soon.
It seems an open item that needs to be closed, and before it's closed, it needs to be just tracked and noted as an item. I'm going to seem to be going around in circles a little bit.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. So it's so I mean, I can only comment from a kind of very technical point of view. The resolution that was made last time has been delivered. The letter was sent. We've had a response. Now, clearly, the council then has the potential to make further resolutions on that matter. And I guess where you're at is that the informal feedback that I'm not particularly excited on is that there has been some progress.
Yeah.
You could decide to take some formal resolutions that we would then carry out. As it stands, there aren't any resolutions that have been agreed for us to action.
Can I propose a resolution? I think this is really simple. I think the resolution is, I think this action needs to remain open until this town council receives adequate, in our opinion, response and agreement of the issue with the district council. I think that, so that I'm proposing that as a resolution here and now.
Well, the trouble is, it's a technical matter, but as the town clerk has explained, the resolution is complete. We, in that the letter was sent. Well, what you're saying now, I think there's a bit of a, we're talking at cross purposes.
Yeah, but nothing's been done. The letter's been sent. That's the easy part. We have not reached agreements with the district council of the underlying issue. Therefore, this is a nice piece of administration, but it hasn't solved anything. I would like to solve something. That's my point.
Something is being solved, Richard. We just heard that.
Negotiations are ongoing to try to resolve the issue.
Agreed, and it needs to be tracked as an action somewhere. Where is that action being tracked?
In the minutes of this meeting.
That be maintained as an open item.
Yes, in the minutes of this meeting, you could say that this has been sent.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Madam Mayor, you can certainly say that in the meeting, but in terms of the council doesn't have any open actions on this
No,
matter
No,
as it stands. So
No.
councillor Scott, you're correct in that sense.
Mm.
Council hasn't agreed to do anything further following the letter, but it sounds like there has been some informal action that's been taken.
Yes.
That
yes,
Well, there has been formal action taken by the department in district council to engage with SLM over the issue, both here and Westminster Lodge, I might add, but we're interested here. And that those talks, negotiations are ongoing. They're quite a way down the track. They're not yet resolved. So until they're resolved, there cannot be a full explanation of what is going to happen. And I take the point. Perhaps we could note that we would like to see this resolved by the time of our next full council in January.
yes, definitely.
With that,
Sorry, did we, I might have dreamt this, I'm sorry if I did, but I thought we had a conversation about their response to us, decided it wasn't good enough and we were going back with some key questions on whether data from Excel. That's happened, but that's not tracked on it. I think that happened after
Yes,
the
it
25th
did.
of September.
It did. It
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
You're
So,
right.
so Madam Mayor,
This isn't the latest bit of the
so,
story.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, those were informal conversations. They weren't council decision to go and do something else.
Okay.
So we can't take action off informal discussions.
No.
It sounds like off the back of those discussions, there has been some progress that hasn't been taken forward by officers, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been progress. But from a formal point of view, there is no outstanding council action. You could agree that you wish to take some action, but there isn't any.
You don't want to
at
scope
the
any
moment.
negotiations.
I don't think it's necessary to have another resolution. Because we should be hearing imminently. What the only resolution we could have is as suggested by councillor Haynes, that we have a resolution to continue
our position
or to look to or expect
A decision.
A decision
will be made by the time of our.
Yeah, to ask, the decision is made by the time of our next full council meeting. So can we have a vote on that? Are we happy to have that?
Second,
Oh, we need, absolutely right, Brian?
Second, I propose.
Yes.
So just to confirm, Madam Mayor, so the proposal is that I write to the district council and request that the town council has this matter resolved by the time of next meet, at the end of January.
Yes.
Yeah, is writing to them again going to upset them? Because if negotiations are, as you say, down the track and there are indications that it might be favourable, we don't want to do is start writing to them again. Because then does it not perhaps look as though we don't really trust the process? Whereas if we've got two competent people here that have been involved in that process, are we saying that's not sufficient and needs me in writing?
Yes, councillor Burrows.
Did we write a letter in September?
Yes. Yes.
Did we get a response?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it said, because that's the bit I'm missing.
It said.
Because
It didn't say a lot. It didn't say a lot.
January to September is quite a long time for Richard to be telling people.
It
that
didn't
complain
say a
about-
lot,
Sorry,
but sorry, but then,
it's a long time for him to be
yeah, it is.
having to deal with people complaining.
But then councillors here, district councillors, town councillors, then approached district council and made it very clear that we expected to see some resolution of this as quickly as possible because we weren't happy about it, essentially.
And you think that's a good time?
Well, it certainly has yielded discussions with SLM that, as I've said, I understand that those are now a long way down the road to getting a resolution of the problem. Not just here, but in Westminster Lodge as well.
That people have to have special meetings and they have to be.
I'm pretty bad at responding to stuff, and I get this bit in between and conversations, but 6 months is quite a long time to me.
Yes, well, this is the world of local authority. Are we going to,
It's only
Can we have a
now,
vote
isn't
on
it?
whether
So I'm
we-
not sure what another letter, which possibly could upset them in the meantime, has been achieved.
Can I
Yeah.
make a suggestion? I do recognise there appears to be a contractual issue between the district council and SO in terms of the commitment to a number
Yeah.
of parking spaces. So I do understand that there's a negotiation that has to be done and perhaps an amendment to the contract to understand that. Where I'm coming from very simply is some simple old-fashioned project management. To me, the action is not closed for this council until we have agreed a new set of new number of parking spaces reserved for the leisure centre staff at the leisure centre. That is the action. Writing a letter, having meetings at intermediate steps, they're not the completion of the action that closes out the issue. So whether it's the wording here or it's a resolution, I probably need some help to put it in the right place. But my point is, I would like this to remain as an open action until we've closed out the issue of the parking spaces for leisure centre staff between us and the district council.
Is it reasonable in the minutes simply to say that I reported in my mayor's report, well, what was said? And that would that be sufficient?
So ordinarily, we wouldn't normally include that in the minutes, but you could resolve to include that in the minutes.
Yes.
I mean, I completely understand the point Councillor Scott's making. In order for there to be a continued action, you need to agree what that action is, because the action was agreed, which was to write the letter. And so that's closed. If there's something else you wish to do, then you have to resolve to do that. It sounds to me, it's almost a strategic point. Would now be the right time, if there are informal conversations that individuals have had, I must stress the council hasn't had them, because, it's clearly individuals are taking it forward, which is absolutely fine. Is it best to leave those conversations to continue, or is now a good time for the council to continue its pressure as a body? That's your dilemma, I believe.
Can I suggest we resolve to put in the minutes what has been said about informal discussions going on and formal discussions that have gone on at St Albans District Council with SLM, and that we will note them. Should we resolve to note them?
Yeah, you could put that in there to council.
Yes. So would I have a seconder for that? Yes, I propose it. Yes. Thank you. Well, can we have a vote on that? Whether we resolve to note the formal and informal discussions that are going on, and what we have heard is that we've had encouraging news about this, and we look forward to expedient resolution. Yeah, so can we vote on that, please? Who votes on to accept that? And any votes against?
That's not against.
No, you're for. None against. Thank you. I think that's carried. Well, we now move on, I think, to the business plan on page 24. And we're not going to go through this in detail. There's quite a lot of information here. But do we have questions or points that people wish to raise? Point out that as well as the business plan, we have the management document, the delivery plan for the business plan, which gives the detail of who is going to perform which actions to contribute towards achieving the objectives of the business plan.
Might be detail which are to be discussed later, and do say if they are, and it's not the right time to discuss them now. But I had a couple of questions in relation to the thank you hub, which is going to support the business support working party.
Yes.
And I just wondered whether the businesses.
That's the restructuring, yeah.
Yes. So I looked on the website and I looked at the form and I wondered how many people were engaging in that form. So I know that the deadline is coming quite soon. And I wondered whether they would be reassured that we had people within our body, either the council officers or the councillors, that would be qualified to assist businesses in their development and so on.
Well, we have been having discussions, informal discussions about this, how it could possibly work, and that it's not just a matter of council officers giving advice, but a matter more of, well, perhaps I should pass to the town council.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So essentially, I don't think we see individual councillors being the individuals that give the advice to different businesses, although clearly if there's a certain skill set that's required, then there may be opportunity to do so. The business support working party is to scope and explore what that offer looks like. So essentially taking the data that we're going to receive from the business survey, which is currently running, and I'll send around the latest figures tomorrow. I don't have them to hand, but I'll happily email them around tomorrow. So the working party will take the information and data that's been collected that will hopefully show where the town council can offer its best value to supporting businesses. And then that working party will work in partnership to design that support offer. So for example, that may be that the organisations like Wenta and Stanta, who are already operating in this space, they already have a ready-made offer that looks at PR and marketing, if that's the need. It may also mean that it may also be that the data tells us that there's a particular support offer that isn't available at the moment. So the working group and the council may wish to design something bespoke. So the working party will look to design the support offer rather than deliver the offer themselves. But the data capture through the survey is the first part of that. Because what we didn't want to do is design an offer that we think businesses need, and then you roll something out that isn't actually what businesses need.
Yes.
So the data capture, and the reason we launched it before Christmas is so that should the business plan be approved, the working party has a great run at it early in the new year with the data ready, assuming that there's been lots of responses.
How's that been publicised?
Well, we haven't agreed the business plan yet.
Right,
and
it's
the,
live on the website, isn't it?
How would it be publicised? What, the survey?
The
survey has gone
Yeah, so the survey, Madam Mayor, has gone out across all of our own comms channels, which includes some of our direct mails where we already have engagement and relationships business. It's also gone out through Stanta networks, and it went out to Wenta's distribution list, which had something like 170 Harpen and business on. So we had a really good starting point. So we're trying to get out to them. There was a bit of a flurry to start with, and then we're just continuing to kind of keep it going through social media and all that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? On the subject of restructuring, I'd just like to say that I'm hoping all the councillors will give plenty of thought to where they could contribute to the new committee and working parties. And I'm going to write to the Liberal Democrat councillors to ask them about that. And I hope that we'll be able to form very enthusiastic and
Madam Mayor, could I just jump the gun there? Given that two of my existing working parties have been shown the exit, I'm happy to volunteer for the business support working party in addition to my other responsibilities.
Thank you. I was going to do that subsequently, Richard, but I've noted that. Well, everyone, having it, but I don't see any more questions. No? No more questions? No, thank you. Yes. It's up the resolutions now on page 24. We need to seek approval of the new town business plan. So
Can I just double and triple check for the purposes of the new working parties? There's a new party that's rather than just looking at the elderly, that it's vulnerable people now, which would include some members of our community.
Vulnerable.
Disabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that bearing in mind the repeated reference to antisocial behaviour and that sort of thing, is a need, and I think we should have on our radar in the new year, looking at facilities and opportunities for younger members of our community as well as older members.
Yeah.
So I fully support the dementia cafe and that sort of thing. Obviously, that's where this started, but I think there's a real need for more youth engagement.
Yes, I mean, we had a youth engagement working party, but this is now being rather subsumed into the normal workings of the council. I don't know if council, you have anything you want to add on this?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So we continue to have a youth engagement policy, which essentially sets out some key principles of how we will engage young people when taking kind of key decisions, predominantly on projects that impact them or services if we were delivering services that impact them. In terms of the vulnerable people working party, I think within the table we've tried to set out, I think it's at the bottom of 31, that the first task of the working party is really to try to drill down as to where the focus will be in terms of vulnerable people, because it's a very wide, broad thing, and clearly the council can't do everything for everybody.
No.
And so I believe the difficult conversation and debate that we have to have through the working party and recommended through to its parent body is, what do we mean by the support to vulnerable? You know, is there a particular area of the community that we wish to focus on? So clearly young people could be put into that discussion, but I think it's for the working parties to make a recommendation quite early to the committee as to what that scope of that work really looks like, because the council really can't do everything for all types of vulnerable people under the current resources anyway.
No. Well, thank you. And again, you know, bear in mind which groups you might be interested in joining, everyone who feels they've got a little bit of time available, and you can join working parties remotely, of course.
Thank you.
So yeah, we just need to formally resolve.
We need to formally resolve to page 24 to formally resolve to approve the business plan as set out in Appendix A. So anyone to second that, please? I propose it.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, it doesn't require it's recommendation, so it's straight to the vote.
Oh, I see, straight to the vote. Thank you. Unanimous. We note the delivery plan and approve the new council government structure set out in Appendix C. Vote on that as well, please. Thank you. And finally, we move to page 47.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a recommendation that's come through Corporate Policy and Finance in relation to the audited annual governance and accountability return. CPF have looked at this and recommended that this is approved. This is an annual important governance process for us. And once again, we've received the assurance that we require as a council. So you're asked to essentially approve the annual governance accountability return for 22-23, which has been recommended by CPF.
Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. But we now move to exempt business. And there are no items of exempt business, so I now close the meeting at 9:20. Thank you all very much for attending.